Okay, so now we're into the coloring phase, or painting phase. I'm not sure exactly how you would call it, but this is where things get a little complicated. So it's not gonna be quite a like 1, 2, 3 type of guide. I think everyone kind of finds their own sort of groove about what makes the most sense for them of how to get the colors to work the way they want them to work, and there's a lot about experience of doing a lot of studies of different things that you see in the real life, or taking photographs and drawing and things from there. But basically, so I'm going to not go into how I did the little background parts. I'm just going to talk about the main character, and just the same process that goes to the main character we're going to apply to the background as well. And you may notice that there's some empty space here, and the reason for that is that for this particular card series in the God deck, it was important to have a kind of dark feel to it, which was a little bit difficult to do because my basic premise for this character is more of a kind of light, soft type of color palette. But in order to try to get it to fit into the particular card deck that I was designing it for, I did what we call in Japanese is a beta nuri. I'm not exactly sure what to call that in English. It's basically just putting like thick areas of black into the inking. So on top of this regular inking layer, I have a beta nuri layer. Here we go. Like this. Yeah. So basically just took like black and just filled in generously around like areas of shadow and so forth, and also put a bunch of like different line work here. And in Clip Studio Pro, you can actually have a layer of tone shading. So I set up a tone shader that's sort of like a hatched line, and put that around in different areas as well to kind of get that sort of darker effect, and kind of like a sort of put it on top of her hair and things like that as well, to give it sort of a kind of like an older feel to the sketch and so forth. So, but yeah, so that's basically how that worked. And then the first step in painting her in was we already had that layer on the very bottom before, so I decided to just start off by drawing her skin tone. Skin tone is generally going to be the very first layer, because all clothes and all those other things layer on top of the skin, so skin tone is probably going to be the first layer, I believe. And so basically I just went through here and added some shading and other things like that. If you want to get more in depth about how to do coloring and things like that, I think that it would have to be another video. But I could just mention briefly that well, you see obviously here I have arrow here indicating where the light's coming from, so it's good to keep that in mind. And the other thing I wanted to mention was just with the Clip Studio Pro, another reason why I'm kind of leaning toward using this more lately than Photoshop is that with Photoshop you're just kind of layering colors on top of each other. But the thing that's really cool about Clip Studio Pro is you could have this basic layer there, and you have like these brushes that are kind of set as like watercolor or oil painting and things like that. So I could take sort of like the oil painting color, and let's say we want to put some blush or something on her. So I don't know, where would we put it easier? I will add. There's no, it's pretty much already done. But let's say that we just want to add like some red color into her arm here. If I use the oil painting setting, it kind of, you can see how it sort of starts blending in. Like I'm just using I'm just using red. I'm not putting any other colors into there, but it automatically like starts to blend in with the colors around it. And when you use an oil painting brush, it's pretty thick the way that it lays down. But if you want a softer touch to it, then you could go in with the watercolor brush and kind of go over it again. The watercolor brush would make a more soft type of feel to it. And so I found that in a lot of ways this has been a little bit easier for me than, well, not easier, but faster, I guess, and well, easier to make certain effects than Photoshop usually is. So I've been kind of using this a lot lately, but I don't actually want that color there, so let's try to delete that. So if you think of in Photoshop, Photoshop is going to be similar to this pencil tool, where you have a color down, you put a color down, and then in order to get that sort of like shade effect, a lot of times what you have to do is you have to like hold Alt and select the colors in like various levels of mixture. So you put down a little bit, then Alt select, put shade a little bit more, Alt select, shade a little bit more, and I mean, you could get a similar effect, but if I found that it takes a little bit more time than just sort of like on here, where I could just take the watercolor and just go whoop, and it already just starts blending things together really quickly and easily. So that's just something I've been liking about this program. Of course, Photoshop is a lot better in terms of filters and like gradients, layers, and things like that, and just the manipulating the image. So I definitely still use Photoshop, but for the majority of my drawing and painting area, just direct painting stuff, I'm using Clip Studio Pro now. So let's see. So we have I had the basic skin tones there, and what did we add here? So, yep, here I think I started to add some different colors for like makeup and things to try out different stuff to see how I can affect her eyelashes and things like that. And then this was a layer of shading, and I think for this layer, what did I do? I believe I just copied and pasted the whole. So, like for example, I took the bottom layer and just made a new copy of that, and then what you could do is you could put that into a multiply layer, or you could just take the layer as it is and Control U, change the brightness of it, so you can make it a little darker, maybe change the color a little bit to make it like a opposite color or something, because if you have opposite colors, things tend to stand out a little bit better in things. Maybe drop the opacity a little bit. I mean, you could mess with this according to your own taste or whatever. Or the other easy way was just to do the multiply layer. And then once you've done that, you hold Alt and hit the what was this called? Layer mask, I think. And if you're holding Alt in Windows, it should come up black so that everything's not showing, and then you would draw on there with white to make things show up. And that works in Photoshop as well. And maybe you could just, then afterwards, after you put it down. See, the nice thing about having this type of layer is after you put it down, if you say like, oh well, that's not dark enough, you could click back on this layer, Control U, darken it up a little bit, get it to fit to your preferences of exactly what type of shade you want. And then, so that's sort of how I got this shading done here, or these shadows in here. And then I think I put another layer to make it a little bit stronger. And then let's see after that. Yeah, then basically just put the color in for the eyes and mouth and so forth. And then on top of that, I had a layer for the clothing, and then another layer for this different colored clothes down there. And then this is a layer for the hat and the corset and the socks and everything. And when I'm painting in these layers, another thing to note is I'm locking them, so that when you lock a layer, what that allows you to do is and there should be like a little lock button up here. It has it in Photoshop as well, so if you look for it, you can have it. I think in Photoshop it's not a lock button; it's just like this sort of like what do you call this? Like checkerboard type of symbol. But so once you lock a layer, what that allows you to do is you can draw color freely on that layer without worrying about getting it onto the other layers. So let's see, like if I had a blue here, it's only going to be inside this layer. It never goes outside of that layer. And that just allows you to keep things separate and clean and keep things from flowing into each other. So after doing that, so then we had had her hair. And on top of her hair, put some highlights there, and keep going up. Eye color, and another layer doing the. I think this is multiply, just like before. I was just checking to make sure that the pupils were centered, and there you go. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I'd say again, like there's probably a lot more involved in painting the colors and getting the colors to behave in the way you want, but I just have. Once again, that's probably gonna have to be a video for another day, because there's just so much involved in manipulating color that I can't talk about that in the scope of this particular video. But now we're moving on to the last step, which is in Japanese they call it shiage. I don't know how I guess it's like the cleaning up phase, just to like get it ready for its final, just taking all the final touches. So I'll move over to Photoshop for that step. Let's go take a look at that.